You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I'm Steven Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. He is Daylan Flowers on loan over from the Rebel Walk in his weekly segment. Big game on Friday. Daylan Flowers gets to go to an Egg Bowl for the first time.
Yeah, man. I'm super excited. Like, I genuinely have kind of always put an asterisk next to it because it's always been on Thanksgiving. And this year, since it's the day after, I will also have the ability to have some immediate family members come to Oxford and enjoy that weekend for us as well. So I'm excited. I think the stakes are obviously in a weird position right now, but regardless, I think it's still the game for Ole Miss fans, and that rivalry is something that no matter how good or bad either team is or how good each team is in the moment, it's still going to be the rivalry and the game for both fans. So I'm just super happy to be able to finally experience it and hopefully see the true correlation if state fans are as peppy as if I've heard they are really just as bad if I also have heard that they can be.
Since the game is in Oxford and they're 2-9, I can't imagine that too many of them are going to come. I just can't imagine. They don't travel to Oxford regardless, but this year's feels like even less.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just a point to kind of enjoy maybe one last day on the Grove as well. I'm just excited in general because like this is my first time, and I know the being here over for the last 2 going on 3 full years is the rivalry. That's kind of the history behind it. I get to talk to you so much, being a student at Ole Miss. But for me to actually be able to be there this weekend and enjoy it and experience it for the first time, regardless, I'm gonna be excited for it. I just think that. No matter all the history that we have with other teams, this is state. This is the in-state rivalry. This is the Egg Bowl, and I think this is our chance to win in back-to-back years and kind of solidify ourselves as the big dog over the last couple of years.
All right, so I'm going to give you my Ole Miss and Mississippi State history lesson since this is your first game. My first game from Ole Miss and Mississippi State I went to, and the first Ole Miss game I ever saw was the Ole Miss and State game in 1982. It was Steve Sloan's last game. That was a game that Mississippi State won. They actually had a decent team. Quarterback in that game was Ken Austin, who's over at Auburn right now as an assistant coach. The next year was the Immaculate Deflection. I was in the stadium for the wind-blown back field goal. It was absolutely nuts, Daylan. It was nuts. It was like a 27-yard field goal. Artie Cosby, the state kicker, was an all-SEC level kicker. There was no doubt that was going through. Right before the kick, Billy Brewer called timeout. Everybody likes to say they wanted the weather to come in and the wind to come in. And I like that. No, it was just, okay, we're going to ice the kicker, basically. Artie Cosby kicked it. It was going up, and it got almost to the goalpost, probably 6 feet from the goalpost. And then the ball switched and started spinning the other direction and fell straight down. When the ball went up and it was going through, the state fans lost their mind. That was in Jackson. Half the stadium was Mississippi State. They were going nuts. Whenever it started to come down, the Ole Miss fans on this side started to go nuts. And everybody was like, what is going on? And then once we got our bearings, there was like, okay, we need to get to our car because the bottom is about to fall out of this rainstorm. But that was an amazing game. And that was probably the day that my Ole Miss fandom was cemented.
See, I love that you can depict something that long ago piece by piece, and that's how exhilarating that moment was for you. And I will literally be able to hopefully tell my kids one day in the future about the Georgia game or even the LSU game last year and how that day went for me, and the atmosphere in the stadium and the way a certain play went, and how loud the crowd got at that moment, or our early field rush before the game hit 000 against Georgia. Like, I love that you can still depict that, because that is what college football is about. Like, you know, we win, we lose, but at the end of the day, you sit there and this is what you come together with your family and friends to like make memories like that. And so like, it's honestly like kind of just amazing to hear you be able to remember every detail like that and still be able to talk about it with that much joy.
Yes. And we're going to tell you some more. I went to every Ole Miss and State game from 82 to like 89 or 90, something like that. Before they went on campus, I was there. In 87, I think it was 87. Maybe it was 86. There was a fight in the game that all the team just lined up in the middle of the field, and it stretched from 5-yard line to 5-yard line in a single file line of people fighting each other. That happened as this game became known a little bit of a very toxic rivalry, and fighting was just something that happened in that game. It also happened again in 1990 in the last game. That was Tom Luke was the quarterback in that game. Ole Miss won that.
Yeah.
Went back to Starkville in 91. State won that game, and 92 was the stand. Mississippi State had 12 plays inside Ole Miss's 10-yard line in the last 2 minutes to win the game. They could not get into the end zone. Ole Miss ended up winning that game. In 95 was the Tommy Tuberville due innocent game where he ran for 250 yards in Starkville. And 97 was the 2-point conversion. In I think it was 2000, it was Romero to Deuce as a 2-point conversion at the end of the game. 2003 was Jackie Sherrill, the habitual liars, last game with Eli putting 31-0 on them. There was 45-0 that was put on them by Houston Nutt in 2008. There's so many great memories. 2014, Mississippi State was playing to make the college football playoff. Ole Miss beat the brakes off of them that day.
Yep.
And, of course, Ole Miss is going for 4 wins in the last 5 games, and the only one they didn't win was in 2022, and it was kind of a monsoon, and that was Mike Leach's last game, which I'm completely okay with. This is the history lesson that I had on this rivalry. So what are you expecting Saturday night?
Man, coming off the loss coming off the loss of Florida, I still think that this team has still kind of been brought together in a way that I didn't think they were going to continue moving forward after the LSU loss. So I still expect a high-impacted game. I think one huge thing that I think many people are realizing, but also some may be forgetting, is this is Jeff Lebby's return to Oxford, and he obviously had a great relationship with Lane Kiffin and was under the helm of Matt Corral when he was here at Ole Miss, and kind of helped evolutionize what Matt Corral was as a player here. So I think it's definitely going to be an emotional game. I think it's going to be a game that may tug people a little bit as well. I think State has obviously not in the first year of Lebby's time there. Obviously, it's not wanted to do what they wanted to. But I mean, they've put up some fighters against some great teams this year. Even the Texas Longhorns, and I think that Lebby understands that this is a team that is a really good football team in Ole Miss, but is also has the strings be pulled. And so I know Lebby has, I'm sure, watched a lot of film on what Pete Golding is doing, and offensive mind that Jeff Lebby is a little bit of creativity from his offense. I think they've kind of been the only really maybe star in the very sublight that they've had all season. And I can see the potential that a Jeff Lebby head coach football team has on the offensive side of the ball. Their defense is definitely still a work in progress. But the offense has not been horrible this entire year. I think they've just lacked some consistency, but I definitely wouldn't be surprised to see some trick plays from Lebby and the Mississippi State offense, and a lot of creativity that maybe we wouldn't expect them. So expect the defense to have to play on their toes a little bit at Friday. And man, for the offense, I just want to see them have fun. I think this has been a season that the offensive side of the ball has received a lot of criticism. And after last weekend, I think they're just putting a lot of pressure on them right now. And I think that I just want them to kind of go out there. Last game for these seniors at home. I just want them to go out there and have fun with it, regardless of what's happened this season and regardless of what happens on the game. I just want them to kind of relax, enjoy the moment, enjoy the game. I just want to see a bunch of smiles and hugs and high fives throughout the game for the offense Friday.
Yeah, and Trey Harris is obviously going to be out for this game. Jordan Watkins apparently tweaked his hamstring against Florida, was not 100%. We're going to talk about whether or not this is actually the Ayden Williams game, this Egg Bowl. We're going to talk about that right next. But first, I do want to let you know about FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Ole Miss is a 26.5-point favorite over the Mississippi State Bulldogs in the Egg Bowl. I am worried about how they will react after Florida, but having a path to the playoffs still and that hope still a little bit alive gives me a little bit of hope of what's going on. The FanDuel Sportsbook app actually gives you everything you would need to place live bets all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page that you placed your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That is FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And also, Game Time is your place to find Egg Bowl tickets. If you're looking at going to the game and trying to get into the stadium one last time, you can check it out with Game Time. They have killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from receipts, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying Ole Miss tickets. You know, there's not a bad seat in Vaughn Hemingway Stadium. There's not a bad seat in the pavilion. But if you want to see the view from that seat before you buy the tickets, you can check it out on Game Time. They have the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, etc. They take the guesswork out of buying Ole Miss tickets with Game Time. And with this being the most anticipated season in Ole Miss history, I may be able to help you out with tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So, Daylan, we talked before the break that Trey Harris has probably played his last down at Ole Miss. He did get his 1,000-yard season, so good for him for that. And Jordan Watkins kind of tweaked his hamstring in that game as well. He was not quite 100%. I would imagine that Jordan Watkins is probably not going to play in this game either. Caden Lee is likely going to be the alpha dog. Juice Wells, they talk weird about Juice, but it all sounds like this could be the game that Ayden Williams gets on the field quite a bit. Finally, for him to make his appearance that everybody's expecting him to make before the bowl game, because if everybody opts out like we're thinking, Ayden Williams is also going to play a major role in the bowl game. So is Ayden Williams' time now?
Yeah, and I'm super excited about it. I remember last year before the season started, there was a lot of just, I'd say, hype around Ayden Williams, and even Lane Kiffin had come out in the weeks prior before the start of last season and just kind of talked about his uniqueness and his talent that had been shown in the pre-fall camp last year. We've seen glimpses of what he can do in the football field, but never in a consistent basis over his 2 years here. And I've always been excited about him. I think that he is, for a guy that has as much talent that he does, and was as highly recruited out of high school as he was, throughout this era of the portal and, guys leaving and going a lot, he's kind of just really done a good job of just keeping his head up and moving kind of silently, but also continuing to work and just kind of waiting for his time, waiting for his role to prosper. And I think, like you just said, that moment is going to come. I think Caden Lee has done a fantastic job this year, and he's going to kind of be that lead dog out there if we expect, Trey and Jordan not to play, and expect Caden to kind of take that leadership role in the wide receiving group this week and kind of prosper and probably have more targets as well. But Ayden is a guy that is obviously young, fresh-minded, but has a really good ability to make plays happen in the deep ball area, and has a really just good knack for the end zone. I think that's something that obviously can be polished with his lack of experience on the field. But, man, I'm super excited about having a chance to kind of see him play a little bit more. I think his ability and his size as well is kind of almost none to factor. But I think Ayden is really going to prosper here. I think he was brought here for a reason, and I think his time has just had to wait a little bit behind the receiving core that we've had over the last 2 years. And I think now that this is kind of moving forward towards the future of what this program is going to be, I think Ayden Williams is definitely a big piece of what the future is going to be. And as well, real quick, I think that we talked about Austin Simmons so much over the last few weeks, and the recruiting trail we've been on since the Georgia win. I mean, this guy has been here for the last couple of years with Austin Simmons and has learned the system and has learned how the offense wants to move and work. So expect him next year to really, really, really shock a lot of people and put up some good numbers, because I think him and Austin have also worked really well behind closed doors that obviously people aren't seeing in the media or because they're not playing consistently. But when that time comes, expect them to do a lot of great things.
And I'm curious to see what the injury report will look like on Wednesday. Not necessarily. I want to see the players that have nagging stuff that could go on and last through the game, and to see what can happen. I guess Wednesday I'll start figuring out what was going on, and Thursday I'll do the Why Ole Miss Wins episode, so have a little bit of chance there. So anyway, before we get out of here, what are your wishes for this last weekend of the season? What do you think Ole Miss needs to have happen other than Ole Miss putting a 50 burger on Mississippi State?
Oh man, I mean, I think I would. Speaking of Austin Simmons, I think I would like to just see him get some type of game time. Whether that's, I mean, I don't want to speak too much on the situation right now because I'm not in that room and that's not my decision to make. But I think it's definitely right to at least have him out there for maybe the fourth quarter of the game, depending how the game is going at that time. I think that fans are excited for his potential, and I think that, I mean, again, depending on how it goes, there's no better time to bring it. But there's also that asterisk next to it, because I know that we're all kind of losing our minds right now and everyone's upset. But I mean, we kind of talked about this before we got on camera, and even Brad Logan has talked about this over the last 2 days. There's still a possibility that that the Ole Miss Rebels could get into the college football playoffs. I know that seems absurd to say for some people, and I'm not really looking my chops on saying this team is going to get into the playoffs, but I'm saying that there is still definitely some type of possibility. I think that the 3 losses that this team has, only a 3-point loss to Kentucky, only a 3-point loss to LSU, and only a 1 possession loss to Florida, and with 2 really good wins against Carolina and Georgia, you never know how the committee is going to look at things. So just take care of business against State. You don't want this to be a game where you only win by, a field goal on the last 5 seconds of the game. You kind of want to go out there and dominate, and then just put everything in the keys of what you can do. So I want to see Austin, maybe, depending on how the game goes. But also, like you said, I just really want to dominate this game and hopefully, put the committee in maybe in a little bit of a weird position to say, hey, maybe this 3-loss Ole Miss team deserves to be within the 12-team playoff, because who knows what can happen if they get that chance. This could be a same situation with the baseball team a few years ago. Did they really deserve to get into the postseason? Some people agreed, some people disagreed, but they got in, the Rebs got hot, and they finished 2022 national champions. So you never know what can happen, man.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Daylan Flowers, courtesy of the Rebel Walk. Daylan, what do you got going on this week, bud?
Oh man, just enjoying some family time. Drove back down to Arkansas this morning. We'll be here for a couple of days, and then we'll probably go back Thursday or early Friday for the Egg Bowl. But man, I'm just enjoying some relaxation time and enjoying some family time and some good food, might I add, as well. And being a college student, you don't get to enjoy mom and grandma's cooking as much as you'd like to. So I'm trying to enjoy that as much as I can for the time being.
Definitely enjoy it, because there's nothing I would give more right now than grandma's cooking. I would love to have me some grandma's cooking right now. So enjoy that. Anyway, Daylan Flowers, thank you very much, buddy. And we'll talk to you later.
All righty. Howdy toddy, y'all.
Howdy toddy.